up with questions, and you can go ahead and write them in the chat at any time, and then we'll leave some time at the end for some of the questions. And then please do stay at the end of the webinar. We'll have a feedback form and ask for your feedback. We also have 2 books to raffle from Beth and Tan today, and we have some PLUs for you if you need those. And then at the very end, we have a very brief annual meeting for RITELL, so please stick around for that. We have a couple events to remind people of.
So coming up really soon on Thursday, May 9th is our MLL Identity Gallery Walk. So we already have quite a few submissions for that. Garden City Elementary School in Cranston is hosting this year. So we hope everybody can check it out and come and join us to celebrate all of the good work from our students around the state. We also have our MLL Teacher of the Year award nominations open. So if you scan that QR code and try to nominate somebody, they'll join these great folks that you see pictures of from the past 3 years of award winners. You have to nominate by the 20th of May.
And we are planning to put these slides into the chat, so you'll have all of these links and access to all of the information that you're seeing as we're going through the announcements.
We have summer's right around the corner, which is so exciting for us. So there's a lot of opportunities for students. There's a few summer programs linked here, so you can check those out and share them with your students when you get the slides.
Okay, so now it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 speakers who have joined us today from far away. So first, I'll introduce Tan Huynh, who is a secondary school teacher specializing in English language acquisition. Tan is an author, a podcaster, and a consultant. He's taught students from 5th to 10th grade in domestic, public, private, and charter schools. But the bulk of his experience has been in international schools, and he's joining us today from Cambodia. He's taught social studies and spends many of his days co-planning and co-teaching. He's trained in sheltered instruction, WIDA, culturally responsive instruction, international baccalaureate middle years, and the collaborative instructional cycle. His application of research-based strategies on his blog, podcast, and online courses with hopes of celebrating teachers who answer the call to serve multilingual learners. Tan holds a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, specializing in language instruction or language acquisition. Sorry, I'm distracted because I've forgotten to record, which I knew I was going to forget. So now I'm recording. So welcome, Tan. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Beth Skelton has over 30 years of experience as a language educator and holds a master's degree in multicultural teacher education. She has worked with early childhood, elementary, middle, high school, and adult language learners in rural, urban, suburban, and international school settings. She's the co-author with Tan of Long-Term Success for Experienced Multilinguals, a best-selling book that's going to be raffled today, and also Putting It Together, Materials for Teaching Adult English Learners Using a Story-Based Curriculum. She's an active board member of Colorado TESOL, and Beth currently provides professional development coaching and consulting with schools around the world, focused on improving equitable education for multilingual learners. So we're thrilled to have you here today. I'm going to stop sharing and allow you to share your screen if that's the easiest way to do it.
As long as Tan is a co-host.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'll make you a co-host quickly.
As we're waiting for our first slide, good afternoon. It's good morning for me. It's 4 o'clock here in Phnom Penh in the morning. We'd love for you to type in the group chat. How do you say hello in your students' or one of your students' languages? And you can write it phonetically, however you'd like, or in the students' characters if they have characters.
Right, so we have lots of holas coming in. So lots of Spanish, some highs, great. Anything other than, oh, we've got a ciao, that's great. Maharaba, oh, good. So we have some Arabic as well, buenos dias. Still some more Spanish coming in. Any other languages? Kumasta, maharaba, kumasta again, bom dia. We've got some Portuguese. Chomrias, oh, chomrias. Which one is that, Tan?
That's Cambodian.
Say it again.
Jabibsua.
Okay, because you're saying sociedade, and so I
Yeah,
didn't.
that's like the informal way.
Okay. Bonjour, we had some French. Ciao, Italian. Nice. Great. So from all over, thank you for that.
So we brought that, we started here with the student acknowledgement because we want to recognize that we're here for our students, even though we're virtually all over Rhode Island, but also internationally in the world. We just wanted to ground ourselves in why we're here, and we're bringing out student spirits to this webinar. To answer this question, what can grade 4 teachers of MLs do to transform instruction for specifically multilingual learners? That's our focus for today.
And I understand that we have teachers of K through 3 in here. We will continue to refer to that. But this group, this subgroup of students that we're going to focus on are often called in the field still long-term English learners. And so we wanted to take a moment to situate who are these long-term English learners. And they're under this huge umbrella called multilingual learners. And those are all students who speak more than one language. Like I'm also seeing in the chat, hallo. So we've got a German, ni hao, we've got Mandarin. So these are students that go home and speak those languages. And the blue column is all those students who have been identified as needing language services. The orange column is what we're talking about for pre-KK. And those are often called dual language learners because they're learning their heritage or home language as well as the language of instruction, in our context, English, or if you're in a dual language program. So those students also require services, but they're at the pre-KK level. Then you have those students that go home and speak languages other than the language of instruction, English, but they never were classified as an English learner. When they were first tested, when they came in, perhaps their Portuguese or their French or whatever Spanish was high enough level that they actually didn't need services. And so they were never classified, but they do have another language in their home. And then we have that group of former English language learners, and those are students that have been tested out. They exited the program and still have another language at home. We're going to track that blue column down, all of those students that get services. And underneath that blue column, we have what the federal government calls non-English proficient and limited English proficient. And our long-term Ls, our long-term learners, are underneath that category. These are students that have been in our system for 5 or more years, and we have to report on them as a subgroup. So they're not newcomers, although I know that is a big push in your area as well as in our state of Colorado. Lots and lots of newcomers coming in. This is that group of students that 4th grade, 5th grade, they started in kindergarten, we had kindergarten teachers, and they were in for 1st grade and 2nd grade. And now they're still classified as language learners. And that's where they get this label. We have to report on them as a subgroup. So just to situate who we're talking about in this section.
And when we think about Rhode Island, this is how many MLs took the access of from 2021 to 22. It's about 16,000 in your state. And there are students who in particular who are the quote unquote LTELs, 6 years of ML service. There are 1,300 students. This means the LTELs in your state, it comprises of 8,000. So 8%. So we're like, why is it that there are 1,351 students who are in Rhode Island who aren't able to transition? And there are many, many reasons. And we're here to talk about how do we support this particular group of students to move to the next level.
Great. So when we look at this writing rubric that is often used to determine levels, many of you are familiar with this. To exit, they're moving into that category 5. And there's some red lines, we'll call it, of what's the difference between that intermediate, not yet ready to exit, and then we're ready to exit them. And Tan, if you click, we can see these red ideas around complex sentence structures in that first column, in the middle column around technical language use, and in the final column, the language control, is that they're approaching comparability to English proficient peers. And so there are mistakes, yes, but those mistakes are on par with anyone at their grade level that may not have language being an impact. So just to give you a sense of what they're expected to do. And in this session, we're going to be focusing on that. And if you're in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, this still applies to you because this is a K-12 writing rubric. And so technical language at kindergarten sounds very different than technical language at 11th grade science. Okay, so it's just that we're expecting a high level of language use in vocabulary, sentence structure, and discourse at every grade level.
So let's give an example of the technical language or the academic language that separates our students or holds them back. I'm going to give you a sentence. Can you please type in the group chat, what did you do to understand this sentence? This is an actual sentence that I was working with my 10th graders. A few months ago, we were learning about globalization in Cambodia. And this is the sentence that we saw. And this student could read every single word and decode every single word in the sentence. But at the end, when he read the sentence, he was confused. In 2021, U.S. imports from Cambodia totaled 8.7 billion and U.S. exports were 414 million. Can you type in the group chat, what did you do to understand this really complex sentence? That's really short.
Great. So Jody's saying you have to know that US equals United States. So that's some background knowledge that the students would have to know to understand it. So Kerstin says, I know the nouns and the verbs. Kelly divided it into two parts, actually two sentences. Jody says, M is coming in, X is going out. So in and export. Marianne chunked it. Terry was looking at prefixes of M and X, and that's Gina's as well. Karen said that $ is money in the US. Whoa, this is obviously a very experienced group, Tom. They're picking up everything. Right? That you have to understand currency and the symbols. Danielle says, I have to pause after the comma to know that import is being used as a noun and export's being used as a noun, and know that US is an abbreviation. Wow, there's obviously an experienced group. This is great.
Yeah. So this is what I had to do with my student. My student did not understand it. And so I said, okay, listen, let's look at the first part. Their imports from Cambodia totaled. And then there's the second part, the US exports part. But then I also had said, oh, well, he's like, I'm still don't understand this. He said, oh, imports means I drew a picture from Cambodia and I gave him an image and an idea, said, this is what is produced in Cambodia and we send it to the US. And this is how much it was made. But then we also had we missed two words. U.S. exports to Cambodia. That was a phrase that was missing. That's why it was also confusing for him. We said, oh, Cambodia, for example, buys Cadillacs from the U.S. and it comes into Cadillac, and that's about 414 million. Because I did this visually for the student, then he finally understood it. And this is the complexity. Yes.
Yes, other things that came up were the difference between million and billion, and that the 8.7 looks like less if you're not familiar with the factor of billion to million.
Yes, very good. And so this is an example of why the language is so difficult for multilingual learners who have many years of experience. So we're going to figure out how can we support our students just like me, who this is a picture of me when I was in the Philippines. We just escaped from Vietnam on a boat and we were rescued. And my mom is taking her rations to sell some pho so we can make extra income for the family. And I am also considered a long-time English learner, in particular because I enrolled in English class or ESL class in kindergarten. I loved kindergarten so much, I went twice. And I finally exited at the end of grade 4, where they're like, he's actually really proficient. He's ready. He does not need more pull-out intervention anymore. He's ready to be in classes. However, I remember going to 5th grade and the teacher said, okay, it's time for independent reading time. And she had baskets around the room and I went to pick one of the baskets and I saw this one and I was like, yes, finally, not another pilgrim. It just looked like me. And I love pets. And so I was like, and I'm Buddhist. And I was like, oh, this is so affirming. I also picked it because it was the thinnest book with like really big words. And this is the text. Well, this is part of it. Let me just give you a description of the text. It's 96 pages. I should have been able to have read this because it's from grade 3 to 7. Grade 8 to 12, Lexile 1000, Fontes Pinel S. I should have been able to have read and understood this, but let me read this to you and let me show you that I didn't. I'll read it now as a fluent English speaker. Once upon a time, far away in Japan, a poor young artist sat alone in his little house, waiting for his dinner. His housekeeper had gone to market, and he sat sighing to think of all the things he wished she would bring home. He expected her to hurry in at any moment, bowing and opening her little basket to show him how wisely she had spent their few pennies. He heard her step and jumped up. He was very hungry, but the housekeeper lingered on by the door, and the basket stayed shut. Come, he cried, what's in the basket? I couldn't tell you by the end of reading this paragraph in grade 5 who is the character, or I didn't realize there were multiple characters. I couldn't tell you where they were or what's really the problem, even though I could decode every single sentence and word.
And we are going to be using that. If you stay on that page, we're going to be using this text for a lot of our examples and our analysis and questions as we go through, because it's so representative of many of your students that, just like Tan, they can sound out because of the work that's happening at K2, that they are now able to break down those words. They're sounding them out, but may not have the comprehension. So thank you, K2 teachers, for what you're doing. And now we have to say, what can we do to make sure that comprehension is coming along as well?
So our question, our second question here is, why is long-term problematic? This is an infographic that we created from the book. We wanted to say that long-term is problematic because it's deficit-based. And because we sometimes in the field, we often consider these students unmotivated, or they're struggling, and they're slow to progress. And then we often refer them to learning support when they possibly don't even need it. What should we move to, Beth?
Yeah, we ask ourselves, okay, if this RITELL has all these negative connotations glued to it, and Tan knows there was nothing wrong with me, right? I just needed some support with how to go to that next step in language acquisition, and I wasn't getting it at the time. So what do we replace this term RITELL with? And that's what Tan and I are arguing, is that there's a term that we're going to say experienced multilinguals, that we're focusing on their asset of experiences. They have 5 years or more of experience in our schools. They know how to do school. They have more than 5 years of experience in our communities in the US. They know how to navigate the hallways. They know how to navigate the community. They probably use both of their languages in lots of different settings and cultural settings to work with people as they see them come. I'm going to use Spanish now. I'm going to use English now. And that says they're multilingual as well. So we're trying to shift our thinking about this group of students and say, no, they have so many assets, and that experience is something we can build on in the classroom. That's our hope.
Let's play a little mind experiment. Can you type in the group chat what words are associated with people who have dedicated years and years to achieving something? Let's say like the 10,000-hour rules, such as Serena and Venus Williams, who have started playing tennis at age 5, and Nicholas McCarthy, who started playing piano at age 14. He is the only single-handed concert pianist in the world.
And Tan, words like expert, professional, perseverance, commitment, dedication, veteran, grit, expert again, willpower, lots and lots of words coming in to describe that kind of person. Resilience, thank you. Drive, absolutely. And that, like Serena and Venus, they still practice tennis. They're still refining their skills. Nicholas McCarthy still practices every day. They are definitely motivated. There's a lot of time invested. Daniel Ong, you absolutely hit it. And that's where our students are investing time, with that commitment, dedication, and really they are becoming self-aware. And thank you for adding that lovely expression in the chat. And Gabby, tenacious, exactly. Thanks.
Do you notice the collectiveness of this word? All these words are positive and they're not deficit space. Why can't we transfer those positive words to students who are taking a long time to learn English? And that's actually normal. So we're with the shift to experience is quite asset-based, like Beth talked about, in particular because they possess multiple languages that they can draw from at any time to understand and to be understood. They're capable of learning grade level content while in mainstream classes, and they have at least 5 years experience in an English medium school. You're not showing them what a bell schedule is. You're not showing them how to put on a PE uniform. These are not newcomers. They have been in school for 5 years. They understand the system. And lastly, they can use their entire linguistic repertoire just because they have multiple languages. As an example, here is a picture of me. You could see 6th grade. You could see the angry pimple right here. And I have many, many assets. The linguistic asset is that I translated appointments and business transactions for my students at grade 6. My sister, who is 4 years older than me, she would be going. When she can't, I was the substitute translator. Imagine if your kids were expected to be in Cambodia and you were translating, and they're translating for you in Khmer, medical appointments and business transactions at grade 6. I could think and speak in multiple languages, and I could read and write nearly in grade level in English. My social cultural assets are, I understand Vietnamese culture and Buddhism as well. And my experiential is that I was part of band, choir, but I was part of safety guard and student council. I was the model, quote unquote, refugee. Right? I did everything that I was expected to from my family, my school, and my culture, and my society. So your time to type in the group chat, what are the assets of your multilingual learners? Think of their lived experiences, the linguistic assets, or their cultural assets. Can you type in the group chat, please?
And while those are coming in, I dropped in the chat a movie that won, I think, Sundance. It's one of the best short documentaries. It's about 20 minutes and it's excellent, called The Translators. It's exactly the phenomenon that Tan talked about. These students are role models for the newcomers. Thank you, Kirstine, for making that connection. They are excited to share their culture. They have empathy and they're flexible. They are super, Karen, excited to learn. They want the opportunity to learn. We've been interviewing a lot of these students post-book to kind of get more insights, and that is one that's coming through. They want to learn. They want to share their culture. Many of them are caretakers. Oh, Janita, I love that. If I'm saying your name right, they are the ones to help those newer ELs right from the start. They are dedicated and compassionate. They know cognates and root meanings of words. They're willing to share and they're empathetic. These are so beautiful. Yes, thank you for sharing those.
So, Beth, go ahead.
Yeah, when we talk about why it takes so long, this is background that many of you in the room, because you are the multilingual learner specialist, you've seen this before. It's from Cummins' iceberg theory. This is back from the 80s, but it still undergirds our profession today. And that is this difference between basic interpersonal communication skills, known as BICS. It's that social language we use on an everyday basis. Most of our students get that sort of social language to talk about the weather, the weekend, their family, their friends in about 2 years. But the reason it takes so much longer is that we're asking them to be at grade level in math and in science and language arts and in drama. And I know I have art teachers in here as well. That's called that cognitive academic language proficiency. And this language is necessary for them to understand and discuss classroom content and write at grade level. To do that, our students are on a very steep trajectory to catch up to other students who already have, they're on grade level in a sense. And that's going to take 5 to 7 years with explicit instruction. And sometimes what happens is that as students hit that intermediate level of language acquisition, we stop giving them so much explicit instruction. They might only get co-teaching, and that's great. But when is somebody explicitly teaching them how to write that complex sentence that starts with a when clause or a since clause, something like that? And as Daniel, I know you're the science teacher, one of them in here, you know that writing a lab report takes a whole different type of cognition than just talking about the phenomenon that they observed in class in a social setting. So that's the difference, and where we're going to focus is on that bottom half of the iceberg, the academic proficiency.
So here's an example. We have, when I was working with my beginners in a lab report, we were supposed to move a lamp close and far away to a tube that had pondweed or Eladia, and count the bubbles. And my beginners were saying much bubble. But my quote unquote LTELs, or experienced multilinguals, they were saying there were more bubbles when the light was brighter. But my students who are more proficient said something like this: when the light intensity increased, the rate of photosynthesis increased, as evident by the greater production of bubbles. This is the kind of language that separates our quote unquote LTELs with the academic proficient ones. We need this kind of language, and we'll show you how to get there with the students through our book that we spent many, many years working on. It takes what WITA has shared and SIOP and understanding by design, and has put it all together in a really accessible text that we hope that is accessible for teachers just like Douglas, who are common teachers. We don't need you to be English language specialists, a multilingual language specialist. We wrote this book specifically for you as an art teacher, as a music teacher, as a design teacher, as a history teacher who just wants to make things comprehensible for students and structure the output. And the way we did that is we created this instructional framework for experienced multilinguals that starts with understanding by design with the orchard. Here, we're thinking about engineering the summative assessments for students. From the orchard, we look at the individual trees, which are the individual lessons. From the lessons, if we want to nurture the tree to grow, we have to make sure that content is comprehensible, which is represented by the sun and the rain. But finally, we also have output. When things are comprehensible, there is output for students, and that's the fruit. And Beth, you want to talk about this part?
Yes, because this whole framework is about creating those conditions for the academic language to grow and structuring the academic language. So this is where, whether it's co-teaching or whether it's the science teacher by themselves, figuring out what is that language I expect to hear. So when we use that term academic language, somebody typed in the chat that Cummins theory is one of the most misunderstood. And I would say academic language is another one that gets thrown around a lot, but we're not quite sure what it is. So Tan, if you would go to the next slide, I'm going to support your answer. In the chat, you can drop in the conclusion to any one of these 3 sentence starters. Academic language is, academic language means, or academic language includes. And if you would please take a moment and drop an answer to one of those statements in the chat. Yeah, just you can finish off the ending there. Thanks, Enid, for starting us off. Yes, Michelle, it does include content vocabulary. Karen said it's hard. Yes, it's domain specific, Tara. Nice. It's school language. It's content specific vocab. I see a lot around vocab. Yes, Jackie, it includes school language. And if you want to break that out, we've heard terms like tier 3. Yep, you can always see who's had that kind of training from Isabel Beck. It includes words that have Greek and Latin roots. Yes. It can be difficult even for native English speakers. Thank you for putting that in the box, right? It includes stories. Yes, it does. Contextual vocabulary, lots and lots. Oh, thank you, Jackie, for bringing in grammar. And Michelle about this depth of knowledge. Yes. And we need to validate social language. So Trisha, yes, it's all on a continuum. So yes, academic language includes the social. Like I need language to talk to my partners in a group sometimes. Absolutely. No, these are great. It does include listening and speaking, reading and writing. They've covered a lot of it, Tan.
They have
And
been so engaged.
in the next
Good.
slide, I want to share some of the things that didn't quite come up, or I might have missed them. Yay to vocab. That came up and always does right away. So academic vocabulary, and some people dropped in the chat tier 3 words. That's words like photosynthesis or culture. But it's also words that some people call, like Isabel Beck calls tier 2 words. And that's that generalizable, transferable vocab from one content area to another. Words like factor, feature, and contribute. And so we see words like feature in all the different content areas. And often it's that word in an assessment or in a question or a prompt that really throws the students off. And so kindergarten teachers, ears perked, you can do things like saying to the student, what an interesting feature on your backpack. Will you show me that pocket with the zipper? I love the features of your shoes. They light up. So using those terms, even at a kindergarten level, are adding complexity for the students and transferable words that they're going to see across the curriculum. But it's not just vocabulary. Those are just the bricks to our building. This architectural metaphor from Dutroux and Moran has been around for over 20 years. And so if we start with bricks, the vocab, that's not a house. That's not a structure. We need to put those bricks together, Tan, into some kind of wall, right? That's the sentence structure. And the glue between those bricks is the sentence structure or grammar. So thank you for putting that in the chat. So for example, in a positive, Mari, my only child, will teach in Switzerland next year. It's true. She's going to be an English language development teacher, proud mama, in a school in Switzerland next year. That a positive, I taught to grade 11 and 12 students, and their minds like, oof, they now had a tool for making more complex sentences and adding details. No one had ever taught them that. So sometimes students will read a sentence with a positive like that, and they think there are two people in the sentence. They think there's Mari, and they think there's my only child. They never were taught, right? And Tan says, and he was never ever taught a positives, right? So that structure can impact comprehension and reading, and it can also shift how students write. And it doesn't take long. These kids in 11th and 12th grade were super excited about a positives. But that's just the walls to the building. We still don't have a roof. We don't have doors. We don't have windows. That's the whole organization of the text, which is also a piece of academic language. So the science report has a very different structure than the narrative in an English language arts class. So somebody talked about stories, the story structure, very different than the historical analysis. So each of these structures, these purposes for using language at a big level, the discourse level, the organization level, are important. And that includes your headings, your paragraphs, your transition phrases. Now that house that we just built with our bricks and our walls and our structure, that lives in a neighborhood, and that neighborhood we're going to call context. This neighborhood means that it might be appropriate to have a wrap. And that's the context that's okay, right? The purpose for the text. Who's my audience? And if my audience is the mayor, then I'm going to have to use a certain formal register, right? But if my audience is the rest of the students in my class and nobody else, maybe a more informal register is okay. And then, of course, that text type of report, essay, poem also comes into context. All of those are pieces, are features of academic language that we can teach explicitly.
So we'll start with our framework looking at the orchard. Don't worry, and we'll go throughout each of this. You'll get ready for practical examples of how to apply this framework to your classes today.
So we're going to focus on a standardized assessment because of Tan's experience. These are assessments that you can't change, but you can give these experienced multilinguals support, tools, learning strategies for dealing with assessments like your RICAS. And I don't know if you say recast, RICAS, or RICAS. I know we have the CMAS in Colorado. And then we have IB and ACT and College Board, all of those standard, we can't touch them. But what we can do is give students our learning strategies so that they can manage to respond to those types of prompts. and we give them the tools to do that.
What skills and strategies can experienced multilinguals use when responding to standardized assessment prompts? Can you type in the group chat?
Thanks, Tan.
No.
So if you've ever helped your students with any kind of standardized assessment, even if it's something like iReady. Oh, Jody, I love that phrase, steal from the question. We sometimes call it sentence mirroring or prompt mirroring. Exactly. Restate the question. Yay. So they've already got that, Tan. We can move fast through that. We can tell them and show them how to create their own graphic organizers. They can pick out keywords so that they can look at that's important for this. We can teach them how to annotate using the text to support their answer. Yay, Amanda. We can teach them how to chunk it and break it down. Yeah, Jody, the only time we tell them to steal, I love it. We can teach them how to use a bilingual dictionary if it's allowable. Absolutely. They can teach them how to make their own sentence starters. Yay! All of these are things that Tan and I are finding that are hugely powerful for this group of students who have been with us for 5 or more years. It is like gold to them. Like, why didn't everyone teach this to me before? So in fact, we're basically taking away the support and teaching them how to create their own supports when they're on their own. Thank you. Yeah, so let's give that example. Here's Tan's text again from his fifth or sixth grade about the artist who was in Japan, waiting for his housekeeper to come in. Now, the prompt was to infer what is in the basket and use text evidence to justify the response. I'm going to tell you, you actually don't have enough text to infer, but you do have enough text to say what it's not. Okay, so we can negatively infer on this one. Now, if this is the prompt, just like you said in the chat, we're going to teach students how to chunk it and then figure out what are each of the parts. So Tan, if you take it to the next step, they've already typed that in the chat. Just like you wrote in the chat, we can say infer and justify. That's 2 parts. And they're going to say part 1, oh, infer. We taught them that infer means to guess using text, right? And justify, oh, I know, I need to cite or quote the text. So we taught explicitly those command terms or function words or verbs that you want to talk about, infer, justify, analyze, compare. They know what those terms mean because we explicitly teach them. And now the students have chunked it into part 1 and part 2. They know what to do. Then they rewrite it and they say, okay, infer what's in the basket. What do I have to do? I have to say what I think is in the basket. Great. And then in part 2, they say, I have to use text evidence to justify. What is it I have to do? I need to find evidence in the text. Okay, so they are ready to answer now. Our students can do that. And then finally, just like you wrote in the chat, Tan, they preempted this whole thing. We're going to have them steal, right? Steal from the prompt or mirror the prompt if you don't want to use the word steal. They're going to take that prompt and turn it into their own sentence starters. I infer that there is blank in the basket. And then something like the author claims the text states. And those are pre-taught. They know how to introduce text evidence. And I have to say, I am working with even level 2 students, so they've only been here 6 months. They can already do those text starters for adding evidence, starting in 5th, 6th, 7th grade when they have to do the text evidence. So that is something that even beginners can do, and then grab a piece of text. You're going to be a challenge now to see if you can figure that out. You can also teach them to combine those two if that's appropriate for the type of questions and answers that they're going to have to give by using the word because. So I infer that blank was in the basket because the text states. Sometimes they want multiple sentences and you don't want it all in one, but okay. So
Let's move to, so we looked at assessments. Now let's look at what does reading instruction look like for experienced multilinguals?
So here's that text again. And on this text that Tan read aloud to us, we may need to do some things to this text without simplifying it, because Tan and all other experienced multilinguals like him need access to grade level text. And if this is grade 3 to 7, that's what it was designed for, or what somebody said was leveled for. We don't want to simplify it. But what can we add to it to amplify it, to make it more comprehensible? Please drop that in the chat. What kinds of things could I specifically add to this text to make it more comprehensible for Tan? Yay, Lauren. Yes, I can either add an illustration or a picture. Rachel, put in specifically what scaffolded supports. Oh, Janite, I could put in the who, what, where. Beth, I could bring in realia for sure. I could have like a basket and we could act it out. The pictures would be excellent to add, Jen and Gina. You're absolutely right. Yes, I could highlight some parts of speech. Yvette, I could act it out. Jody, I love that too. That's my go-to, is acting it out. We sure could. All of these are great ideas. Well, Tan and I do something called engineering, and this is in the book on how to make that text more comprehensible. Kathy, if we use the title, it would sure give away the inference. So that's great to do a picture walk and a title. And Kathy, I'm guessing that you might be elementary, because yes, picture walks are fabulous. Fausta, we could definitely do some TPR with this. We engineered the text and added this. So Tan, if you click through, we added that chunking. So it's the same text exactly. I just chunked it into 2 parts. And then we added a question. That's a guiding question, like, what information are you looking for in this chunk? And that somebody had talked about, like the who, what, when, and where. Then we added those labeled visuals, which you already brought up in the chat. And then we added a few things like pronouns, because when Tan read this, he actually remembered not knowing who the he was, because it was so far away from when they introduced the artist that he had like not, who are we talking about? Who's the he? And so just putting in that pronoun reference there was helpful for him. And then we also translated a couple of words like bowing, inclinandose. Oh, I missed it. And then also just putting in synonyms like expected is hoped for, or wisely is smartly. So those are other items that you could do to engineer the text. This strategy can be used in any content area. Science teachers, math teachers who are in here, here it comes. Here are some examples, Tan, of engineering in a science class. This is a 3rd grade science text. Up in the top left corner, you'll see the original text, nothing on the page. And this came from the Wonders curriculum. So they do engineer some things, but this one was not. The teacher using it did exactly the same thing. This is from the teacher I worked with in Colorado. She chunked it. She added those guiding questions. She added the synonyms and labeled pictures and translations all the way through the same thing. Trisha, yes, thank you for putting in there. It is intensive and you would never do it for a 96-page book. So how we suggest to manage it, thank you so much for just dropping that in the chat right now, is that we say take that key 3 paragraphs, for example, engineer that. So I'll give you an example. The next one is social studies. This was setting the students up to know what was going to be in the chapter. They had to know these are the questions that will be answered in the chapter. It's about the colonies, the labor of enslaved West African people. They had to know the continents, the US, where they were going, and understand those questions before they could read the rest of the chapter. So that's one idea, is to choose 2, 3, 4 key paragraphs. If you're doing an article or something that might be 10 paragraphs long, or, chunks of text, a 5th grade teacher taught me this, and I have seen it done as young as 4th grade. And that is anything that's digital, the teacher copies a chunk, they copy it and paste that chunk of text onto a Google slide, and they teach the students how to do it. They say, write a guiding question at the top, add labeled visuals, and add your translations for words you think that someone else in the class won't know. So 2 students are working on paragraph 1, 2 students are working on paragraph 2, 2 students are working on paragraph 3. And throughout the class, you have now engineered most of an article, and the students can read it from the slides. Tan's going to show you how he does it with his classes at the upper levels as well. But this has been really powerful, and at the 4th and 5th grade level, the teachers are telling me that the kids love it, because in order to engineer, you have to understand. Yeah, you have to have the background knowledge. Exactly, Michelle. It helps all readers. Here's an example in science and social and science and math. I think we have a math one, Tan. If you
Yes, 1 second. But before we go to that, we have to make sure that when we engineer the text, we still have to teach students to read all the parts of the text, including the guiding question. We have
Yes.
to teach students that when they see the word in brackets, parentheses, it refers to the word that comes in front of it. Right? When they see a picture, they must read the captions as well. So when I engineer my students just want to read the text, but I'm telling them they have to read all of the features of the text to help them.
That's great. Here's a science example, and you can see there's an infographic because often it's numbers in science that really throw students off. Like there are 600 active volcanoes, only 50 to 60 erupt a year. And so you can see in that infographic, only one of the triangles is an erupting volcano representing 100 or 60 of them at once. And then giving that chunked text. And here's one from the ninth grade math teacher. And this was a teacher that was in my class that we did. He came up with this and I just loved it. And so I'd like to just take a quick moment to have you drop in the chat. What are you thinking about this kind of engineering? What kind of things other than this like takes a lot of time? Thank you, Trisha, for bringing that up. Any other thoughts or questions about the examples that we've shown? Great. Well, if they do, just drop them in the chat. Thank you. And the next one, thank you. Jigsawing, Jacqueline, is a really powerful way of supporting all students. And yes, Haley, adult multilingual learners love it too. And color coding is really powerful. That was something that David Purcell added to his. It's really for everyone. Thank you for bringing that up. And the tech skills. So yeah, I don't want to get hung up on, oh my gosh, how do you drag and drop an image into a Google slide? But that's where I found it was the easiest place to do it. Tan, you can show your students in a minute. We have a quick quiz for you on engineering, and that's the next one, Tan, on the 4th grade math. I'll take it. So this was one of the teachers in our workshop, and it was about girls buying a rock collecting container and magnifying glass. The girls had $55 together, but the containers cost $14 and the magnifying glass cost $3. And they each wanted both things, right? So how much money would they have left over if they bought all of the items? What kinds of things, yes, in physics, what kind of things could we do to engineer that math problem? This is 4th grade, so it's a quick quiz for you. Go ahead and drop in the chat. Yep. Visuals, thank you, Enid, you got it. That's the first thing that this teacher, Kirsten Garland in Iowa, did for us. Yes, we need some kind of diagram. We need to see those orders of operations, perhaps. Color coding, take that question apart. She did all of these things. Look at what she did and then said, I'm giving this to everyone. She just scaffolded that word problem. She has a picture and a label of what the container is and how much it costs, what the magnifying glass is and how much that costs, and then she chunked it. She chose not to translate each or in total because she had explicitly taught these terms in class. They had explicitly worked on that term each. And so she just bolded it and that's it. So not giving any more hints. This is keeping grade level rigor, but giving the language support, linguistic support that the students needed. Oh, and I know we have primary people in here, Tan. Let's go ahead and see. Here's from Katie Topple. She engineered this text in primary. This is a different purpose. It's about comprehension, not about just sounding out words, because we don't want to put tree above tree if we're teaching kids to sound out tree. This was different. It was about comprehension. So that's why she had tree, air, soil, water, grow. All of those keywords have a little visual with them. So you see, even down to primary, this works, engineering those texts. And Katie Topple, if you're not following her now, please do. She posts a lot of these resources for free. She is also the newest author of the latest PSYOP book. So we both follow Katie and learn from her. Thanks, Tan.
So looking at my examples in secondary school, this is my ninth graders, we were looking at social media, and I only translated or added some synonyms for some students. I added the section headings. I added the pictures that were here. I actually used not social media, AI to add in statistics. But in particular, notice the translations that are happening here, right? My students are doing that. Like the student who owns this text, she wrote the word display because she doesn't know what the word display is, and she added it herself. And here she doesn't know the word express, so she added the word that's here. So we're teaching students to do that. Instead of saying, I'm going to translate for all 14 languages of my class, I'm going to have you learn how to do that so that when I'm not in your class, you can be successful without me. I also taught my students that they need to annotate the text like this. So at the end of the paragraph, each of my students writes their own summary, and she chose to write it in Korean, which is fabulous. And I just asked her, can you please just paste the English translation in so I understand what you're reading, right? Because she's comprehending. She's not translating everything into English. So Korean, she's only writing in Korean because she's processing that. So let me give you an example of where that I got this as a motivation from. I remember when I went to Dickinson College, it's a top-ranked school in the nation. I was given an $80,000 scholarship, but I had to keep the scholarship to earn the scholarship. To keep it, I had to keep a 3.0. And I was really scared because if not, I would have to go home back to where I was living. And I still remember taking this course in my freshman year. It's about Latin American studies. And I remember coming to the professor's office to ask, like, why am I failing this class? Because it was in October, because they were giving out the progress reports and saying, like, hey, you're doing really well in all your classes except for this. You're failing in this. Please come talk to me. And I asked, and I said, I'm reading the text. I don't understand why I'm participating. I don't understand why I'm almost failing. And he said, how are you reading the text? I said, well, I read from the beginning to top, left to right. I just turn the page when I finish. And he's like, show me your book. He's like, and I showed him my book, and this is what it looked like. And then he went and reached for his book. And he said, this is what my text looks like as a professor. And this is a powerful example of saying, this is the second time I've ever annotated in my life at this moment. So at that moment in grade 5, and also as a freshman in college, I should have not have been taught just how to annotate twice in my life, right? And this is how he taught me to read. And I said, oh, so you're supposed to interact with the text and make notes and not just underline and not just circle things. You're supposed to put in ideas that you understand. And that's now I'm teaching my students. Okay. We have 4 minutes left to talk about writing instruction, Beth.
And Tan, we can go until 10 after. They're fine.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes.
Yep. So let's continue talking about my experience at Dickinson College, because it was such a big gap between social language and then the academic rigor of my college that I was shocked. And my professors were too. They said, how did you get into the school when you write like this? He said it very nicely, of course. He said, listen, there is in our university, at our college, there is a writing center. Please go to the writing center before you submit your essay to me every time. And I said, okay. Every single week I went to the writing center and I needed help. They would sit down with me and they would ask me questions of like, where's your thesis? And I was like, I don't know where to buy that. I'm like, no, you can't buy that. It's like, you have to learn how to write it. Things like the word thesis, I'm sure was taught to me in my AP English class, but was never explicitly developed for me to practice that. And so I now do this with my students. After some of the words that I taught them, or the structures, for example, because, comma, and, although, right? All these things that I have taught my students since, I'm now sitting with them after they've written a section of it. And then we go through the process of saying, yes, you did this right. Yes, you did that right. Oh, this part, since social media causes cyberbullying, it helps you get more information. She didn't understand the concept of the word since as well. So I'm sitting down with her and saying, giving her example of since I have a new puppy, comma, there's lots of pee puddles all around my house. And there's a cause and effect around that, right? And so I'm doing the thing that I really needed was to know how to use complex sentence structures, but I didn't want my students to wait into college to learn that, right? So we're doing that here in high school.
That's great. And we're going to see how the reading and the writing are so inextricably linked, and that we can use the text to teach the writing skills. So we're back to that writing prompt that we saw at the beginning about infer, and how the students learn to break that apart. They learn to see the two parts, and now they're looking into text for evidence and trying to infer what might be in the basket. Yeah. And so if you read through here again, where he sat sighing, he expected her to hurry in at any minute, bowing and opening her little basket to show him how wisely she had spent her few pennies. He heard her step and jumped up. He was very hungry, but the housekeeper lingered by the door and the basket stayed shut. Come, he cried, what's in that basket? So Tan, go ahead. If you would take that next one, we now have which sentence structure, and I'm going to give you a hint, conjunction or transition word, would most help students to infer what's is or is not in the basket. And again, you don't have enough information to actually infer what is in the basket, but which key word would help you understand what's not in the basket? Could you just drop that in the chat? Yay, Angie, Kelly, fast on the draw. Way to go, Amanda. So we have to teach words like this. You got it. That word but indicates a change in direction, a contrast. And of course, this is what has to be directly taught. Thank you, Trisha and Douglas and Danielle, for getting that. That's exactly right. So with that in mind, this but changing direction, students are now primed to say, okay, what could be in the basket? And we can teach these structures within the content and context of the text we're reading or the ones the students are writing. Reading and writing go hand in hand. And Tan, if you'd show how that might be taught, we could teach the conjunctions right here. He was very hungry, but the kids have to go, boom, what would happen? But what might be a possible answer? He was very hungry, but, and feel free to drop something in the chat if you've got an idea. What might be in the basket? Or, right, what might be a follow-up for that but? All right, if you finish that sentence, just brainstorm, even if you don't know this. Yeah, but the market was crowded, but there was an animal, but the basket was empty. All of those show you understand the change in direction. Perfect. And that's what we're going for with the students. Thanks for doing that. And then Tan, we can also teach these three key coordinating conjunctions, because, but, and so, in the context that the students are learning, so that they get the content and the writing structure. We could have them figure out the Japanese artist is hungry because, go back to text, it's because he was poor. The Japanese artist is hungry, so he sends his housekeeper to the market. So there's a result. The Japanese artist is hungry, but the housekeeper doesn't bring anything in the baskets, right? So all of these help them understand the content of that text, but also learn to write complex sentences. Because, but, and so, from the writing revolution, three powerful conjunctions that help our students with content writing and understanding. These three that I just gave teach different skills. They teach how to answer the question, why, basically because answers why. It's that language function. But is that, or so is a result, a therefore, right? It's a result of, Tan, if you click through, and then finally the but. It is the turn and direction. It's a compare contrast language function. So these three little words, because, but, and so, can do so much for our students. And you can teach this in science class and social studies class. I'll show you in the next slide how in grade 3, I told you we'd do elementary examples. Maybe you're learning about seedlings and what they need to grow. And the students have to complete this as their exit ticket to show that they understand seedlings need light to grow because they are making their own food. Seedlings need light to grow, but they can last 2 days without light. I don't know, whatever the experiment was. Seedlings need light to grow, so we have to keep them in the sunshine, or we have to put a grow light on, or so what's the effect or the therefore for that? Same thing would happen with music in 9th grade, for example. I know we have some art teachers and music teachers. George Gershwin is considered a musical genius because, but, and so. So the students are processing content at the same time they are learning to write complex sentences.
And we've learned this from the knowledge gap, where we have to teach content, but students' background knowledge helps them understand. And we added that to the writing revolution, which both Beth shared. And in the future, we'll be writing a book specifically for teachers who are like you, who have a dedicated English class for their multilinguals, or elementary school teachers who have or working with their multilinguals in their English, quote unquote, English block time. Right? Just wait for 2026 when we'll finish writing it. Let me share with you an example of what, one more example. That's my alarm at 5 in the morning to wake up. This is a picture of where I worked after college. I went to Teach for America to work in the lovely New Orleans. And I had to take these standardized assessments. Oh, it was so scary. Instead of like partying as a senior, I just spent my time in the library reading how to pass the praxis test and like multiple of them, right? So let me just show you some of the scores. These are all the required scores, and they're out of 200, right? 200 is the max score, and I'm showing you the minimum required score. Let's look at first the principles of content, English language lit composition. This is like the content part. I got several books on like how to teach pedagogy, how to teach English language and lit, and pass the text. And that's why I got some of these scores. In particular, like 170 out of 130 for the English language and lit composition part, pedagogy part. Let's look at math. I took like there was a part for math, and it said like you have 50 more questions, like 50 more percent, like 50% more to answer. And then in that moment, I converted to every religion, and I just went click, 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 click. And then thankfully I got 175. I do not know how. The universe is helpful. But let me show you my score for reading. I went from K twice to college, and I got 175 out of 172, the minimum required point to pass. How is that possible? And the same for writing. How is it possible that I went from K to 12, K to college at this time, college at the senior level, and I only barely passed both my reading and writing exam on a praxis test, right? So these were life determining moments for me. There were standardized assessments. If there were standardized assessments in the 5th grade, I'll be the oldest 5th grade still in that elementary school. I didn't experience IB exams, but I had the College Board. I had ACT and SAT scores. And because I scored poorly on them, the schools that I wanted to go to were now off the table. The scholarships that I wanted to apply to were now closed to me because I couldn't pass these standardized assessments because I didn't have the academic English. I charmed my way all the way through middle school, high school, and elementary school, and even college, but I couldn't charm these assessments, including the career-based ones. So we'll end our session with 3 minutes. We're talking about in the future, we can't actually go into these, but we'll share with you a book that goes in depth to all of these 3. We spend a lot of time looking at assessments and making things comprehensible, but the book is where you can get it. We want to end with this. What's the main message we're trying to share? We want to embody Dr. Brene Brown by saying clear is kind. Everything we're sharing with you is trying to move from the deficit space to asset space. And the way we can do that is remembering to create instruction that is kind, that is rigorous, that is grade level, but that is comprehensible and structured, and that is kind and clear.
And we have some giveaways. So we also know in this that we are creating conditions for success, and that farmers and gardeners know that you can't make that plant grow. All you can do is create the conditions for growth. And Sir Ken Robinson was one of our inspirations for our metaphor around the front of the book as well, is that we're creating the conditions for our students' success and growth. Thank you for being here to help create those conditions. And we would love to give a couple of you a book, and everyone is a winner as well, because there is on my website, bethskelton.com, is a $5 savings every day of the week. So if you're not one of the winners, which we're going to find out in just a second who that is, if you're not one of the winners, no worries. You can always get the book there for a $5 discount. And Tan, if you would let them share, they have a wheel of names to draw
They
too.
do. We just want to let you know that we're not trying to market our book. We only make $2 for a total each book, and each of us splits that dollar, and that dollar is like tax. So we're not trying to make money, y'all. Let me tell you, we're just trying to make an impact. Hello.
I
Go
love
ahead.
that. I love that so much. Thank you so much. I know everybody is applauding behind their mute microphones as well. So thank you so much for being here, for joining us. I'm going to share the screen with the feedback form, and we do have the wheel of names for the giveaway for the books. So we will do that now.
And we want to thank you while they're doing the wheels for being so responsive in the chat. It just really helps keep the webinar format like really engaged. We love it. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
two that in particular are Danielle and was just messaging privately. I want to say, like, thank you for participating from the beginning to end. Perfect.
I love that. Okay, and we're going to drop also in the chat a link to the feedback form, and there's the QR code as well. So while we're doing the giveaway, folks can be starting to give feedback to Tan and to Beth and to us as well. We'd love to get feedback about this session as well as suggestions for future RITELL sessions. So I'll leave that on the screen for a minute, and we'll drop that in the chat. And we'll do the gift. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
No, I just say thank you. I'm glad it was affirming for you.
Yes. All right, so we're going to do the spin, and typically for RITELL raffles, you have to be in the room, but today we're virtual, so whoever had signed up, their name is on the wheel. So we'll have two giveaways for the book, so thank you for those.
Yay,
So,
Angela!
Angela's our first winner.
And
So,
Angela, you will send Tricia your mailing address. So it has to be a physical mailing address if you're in the room. So physical mailing address, and we'll have Corwin send you the book directly.
thank you. All right, and one more, we'll spin it again. And Paola. Yay. All right, thank you, Beth and Tan, so much. And we're going to run through a few quick announcements and finalizing some of the logistics here. And I didn't actually have a look to see if there were any final questions in the chat that you had noticed that you wanted to respond to before you log off. I know we're over time, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity if you'd noticed something you weren't able to respond to.
If there's anything we missed, feel free to drop it in again or unmute and ask. We're down in numbers, so if you don't mind, there's 100 people in here now.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Jackie had put in the link for the PLUs. So if you are looking for those for your school or for your district, you can get that from the chat as well. And we are going to share out the slides, and Beth and Tan have graciously allowed us to record the session. So this will also be available on the RITELL website for everybody to review. So those are a couple logistical pieces there.
And Tricia, I think, are we ready to log off so you can have your meeting?
Yes, let me just make sure that I can't remember of the council members. Were there any of the final questions we wanted to ask Beth or Tan before we move to the meeting?
there weren't any additional questions in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, Chris.
I was wondering if you had any favorite like resources or websites that you go to for specific writing instruction or like a curriculum you love or anything like that. Because I think that's always that trickiest piece for a lot of us educators.
So this is the one that's really affecting Tan and I a lot now. We use a lot the Writing Revolution. There is a website on it too, Judith Hochman and Natalie Wexler, and it's where that because button so came from. And this is really kind of running across the US right now, the writing rope as well. So the two of those, the Writing Revolution and the Writing Rope, both TWRs.
Great, thank you. And thank you so much for also the discount on your website, Beth and Tan. We love your Empowering ML's website as well. So thank you both for being here and for all the resources and expertise that you shared with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, it's a pleasure. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And we encourage RITELL members to stay on just for a few more minutes. We do have our annual meeting where we'll just share some more logistics about RITELL and other ways for you to get involved.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so for the RITELL Council, as everybody knows, the RITELL Council is volunteer members, and annually we just give an update on the council, what's been happening and the roles on the council for you to know about as members. So I will start us off. I will start us off by reintroducing myself. I'm Tricia Kelly. I'm the current RITELL president, and in my role on the council, I, along with Jackie, organize our meetings, and I've had the privilege this year of welcoming 3 new council members on because we had some shifts in the council. So they'll introduce themselves and their roles on the council as well, but primarily my role is to help keep us together and organized in all of our responsibilities, and also to liaison with some other organizations in the state doing advocacy. And I'll pass it to Jackie.
I'm Jackie Nelson. I'm the vice president of RITELL. I do many different things like help organize our meeting,
Right.
and make sure that we're connecting
Yes.
with each other when we're not able to be in person.
I think it's Tuesday, Thursday, right?
And form connections between the group members. So next, I'm going to send it to Jenny.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Jenny Polanco. I'm the awards manager, and I work with the council to figure out dates for deadlines on our multiple awards, like our very first Multilanguage Learner of the Year award to our Teacher of the Year award. So we have lots of exciting things happening. Teacher of the Year will be happening soon, guys, so look out for that.
Hi, my name is Amy Marshall. I am the conference chair. So right now I am in the process of planning the fall conference that will most likely be held at Rhode Island College. So stay tuned for more details on that.
I'm sorry, guys, I was muted because I was in class. I just finished a class, so I don't know if it's my turn or if somebody's going, but I'll introduce myself. So I'm Alia Hadid. I'm an assistant professor and co-director of the TESOL Bilingual Education Program at Rhode Island College. And I'm also the advocacy chair for RITELL. So we are looking forward now. We announced the names of the winners for the Multilingual Rhode Island the Multilingual Award for the 2024. So that's really exciting. We just launched it and looking forward to announcing the names and, you know, giving out the award during the gallery walk.
And we'll head back. I think Melissa just joined us back in the space. So Melissa, go ahead.
Thank you. So part of my role at RITELL is actually sharing information and updates with the council. If there's anything that you want to share with us, definitely send it over. Let us know. If there are any upcoming events or any information, that's definitely something we want to know about. And you can reach us on our social media. So for Facebook, it's RITELL, Rhode Island Teachers of English Language Learners. On Twitter or X, it's at RITELL_ESL. Our website is www.ritell.net. And our email is ritellteachers@gmail.com. Instagram is RITELL Teachers. I know that's a lot. So if you log into our Facebook or our Twitter right now, you can find all of that information as well.
And I am Alexa Levake. I am the community coordinator for RITELL. And this year, the biggest portion of my work has been preparing for the gallery walk, which is being held next Thursday, May 9th at Garden City Elementary School. Last call kind of for submissions. Boxes will be at libraries until Wednesday. And then we are having a drop-off event at Garden City Elementary School the day before on May 8th. 3:30 to 4:30. Please fill out the form. It's linked in a bunch of different places, but let me know if you need a link to it. And we're really excited to have it back in person this year.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kirsten Pruka. I'm the membership secretary and also the editor of the Bright Spot emails that we've been trying to send out every month to highlight just the wonders and amazingness of teaching multilingual learners. So if you know anybody that you would like to highlight, please email us at ritellteachers@gmail.com. We currently have 352 active RITELL members, and we are always welcome and open for many more. For this webinar, we had 144 registered, and our fall conference had 246 registered, and we're looking forward to our in-person fall conference this fall. Thank you.
Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Morelli. I am the website manager responsible for sending out all those emails and blasts.
Thank you, Brenda. Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Kudo. I just joined RITELL in the last few weeks, and I'm going to be the recording secretary. So I'll learn more about what that entails and taking notes and going through the agendas and communicating what is happening in our meetings to everyone.
Hi, I'm Christina Antonelli. I'm the treasurer for RITELL. So I just go over the yearly expenses. I do the budget every month. And then if you could just turn to the next slide, it breaks down what our budget is spent on. So our original budget was about $15,987.02. So we ended that in December 31st, 2022. And then, 2023. And then we went into, this is the budget from 2023. So you can see all of our yearly expenses. So it breaks down the amount that the percentage that we spent on each specific things like website, the insurance, the affiliate dues, the PO box, the amount that we spent for the keynote speakers, local speakers, how much we spend for the conference space, different travel expenses, awards, and our membership stipends. And then our end of the year budget that just concluded in December is about $21,838.43. So we made a little bit more than the previous year. And then this is just a breakdown you can see of all of our expenses for the year.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everybody on the council, and thank you, everybody who stayed around for the business meeting. The 3-year term for this group of council members will come up in next spring, so spring 25. So we'll be sharing more information about elections for the next 3-year term. And there are always opportunities available to get involved. Even if you're not a part of the council, we are always looking for other forms of participation from members. So I'm going to stop sharing. And if anybody who's still on the webinar has a question or wanted to have some comment, then we're welcome. I'll stay on for a few minutes and we can chat. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody on here needs PLUs, make sure you sign that form too, because I'm sending them out when we get off. I'm so excited that I figured it out.
Yes.
That was really magic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been years.
That's really amazing.
Jackie figured out how to just fill out a Google form and then it will send the PDF to your email.
It's gonna be
Love
coming in hot in a few minutes.
Love it.
Right, good. Right, that was great, everybody.
All right.
I'm wondering if somebody can share the link to the video and the slides, because I really wanted to actually focus with you, but I was in class, they were taking their finals and I was like, "Ooh." You could see I jumped in and I was like, okay, I was out of order. I couldn't hear anything and I didn't know what was happening. So I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay. No, that reminded me to stop recording. So I just stopped recording.
It was also
So,